It's eclipse season. We're in the portal. It is happening. And we're also building up for that Aries eclipse, that big change wave, a grand finale in the sign of Aries with the North Node. This cycle doesn't come back for another 18 years. So we're going to close it out in grand style. You know, have you ever been on a roller coaster or a Ferris wheel? Take your pick. Have you noticed that you have no steering wheel? You really can't control the ride. You're on the ride and you have to go with the flow. You have to like put your hands up and say, I surrender. I think that's what eclipses are really like. There's a wave of destined or fated circumstances in our lives, defined by the south and north node of the moon, also called the nodes of fate, that delineate episodes in our life where we will be experiencing some changes, and not always because we're planning for it, not always because we desire it, not always because we expect it, but always because we need it. There's something about the fates and the nodes of fate that tell us where our soul is aligned, where we're meant to be headed to. And sometimes if we could just soften up a bit, you know, not get so anxious about eclipses, we're going to find them a lot easier. So this Aries eclipse is going to finish a story that began in your life back with the first Aries eclipse in April of 2023. And we're going to talk about your sign today and how this might impact you by looking at the idea of cycles of change in which this cycle has occurred before. And those prior cycles are important. Back in 1948, 1949, for example. I know most of us weren't around for that, but we don't want to forget some of the elders that might be viewing this today. Also back in 1968, 1969, also back in 2006 and 2007. And finally, here we are today, 2023, through until this last grand finale completion eclipse, March the 25th. March the 29th, 2025. Okay, let's get rolling. I'm going to just talk about the general principles. What has happened in these eclipse cycles for the world? Because we have our individual stories of having a big hair day, and they're big, like we have our own stories, but then there's these big things that happen, you know, world events, you know, called mundane astrology. But this eclipse cycle is very predictable. It tracks to the same types of world events every single time. Aries is the sign of war. Aries is a sign of warrior and killing and mayhem and bad things that happen with intent to cause harm. Mars is a malefic, and we have a chironic wound here now. So I'm going to share a bit of historical perspective. This chironically wounded war sort of cycle that's been with us now since 2000, and the chironic wounded war since 2019. Exiting in 2027, Chiron's traveling through Aries. But then the amplification of that wound with the North Node exacerbating it like salt in the war wound ever since we began the first eclipses in April of 23, more intensely as the node of fate itself in July of 23 entered into the sign of Aries. And then now that node is actually left. So this is a mop-up, cleanup kind of eclipse. It's a last gasp. It's the finishing line. I'm going to talk about the Sabian symbol and more. We're going to talk about your sign, of course, and you're listening today. I want you to listen for your sun, moon, or rising. How do you delineate that? Your sun sign is your career purpose, and it's the reason you're on the planet. It's your soul's essence. And your moon is how you feel about this damn game of life, the simulation that somehow we all got stuck in. And holy man, it's also your home and nest and safety and where you live. And then we look at the idea of what about your rising sign? Well, when you come into life, you get born and you take a breath, and there's a horizon line on the eastern horizon. And in the symbolic Western tropical zodiac, that horizon line defines the constellation lined up to the eastern horizon at the time of your birth. And therefore, that is your rising sign. And that is like the character you're playing in the simulation. I always joke that, you know, Donald Trump is definitely a 29-degree Leo because of that concern about making his hair so big. You know, people who have big beards like JD Vance is also a Leo rising, or want the facial hair. You'll often see Leo men and women pretty preoccupied with hair. Okay. The mane, the lion's mane. So your character, your simulation character, can look like your rising sign. And you can act in the character's manner, like Leos are fiery and bold and performative and declarative. We saw a lot of Leo fire in the Zelensky Oval Office meeting between Vance and Zelensky and Trump. Whoa, there was a lot of fire going on there. So now let's talk about this story for the world. What I'm going to do right now is give you a picture. I want you to take a screenshot. It's handy. It'll help you think about the dates. And I know if I rattle off dates, you can't remember them. I wouldn't remember them. So take a screenshot of this. I'll talk a bit about the cycles, world events, talk about the Sabian symbol. We'll delineate your sign and what you might be completing as a wave of destined change in which, yes, like that roller coaster, Ferris wheel, or merry-go-round, you're on the ride, but you have no control. By the way, of course, if you are an Aries, sun, moon, and rising, if you are a Libra, sun, moon, and rising, right? You guys are definitely feeling it. And a Capricorn, Cancers as well. That's called angularity. These are the cardinal signs. And this is like either squaring your sun, moon, rising, opposite, or on it. And therefore, you really feel this every 18 years massive change wave. And we say 18 years for the simple reason that the node of fate moving through the north node of fate, called Rahu, moving through the sign of Aries, the Western tropical sign of Aries, every 18 and a half years is a cycle. But it's also that there's a half cycle. The south node moves through Aries also every 18 and a half years. Therefore, approximately every 9 years, there is a south or north node in the sign of Aries, and conversely, a north or south node in the sign of Libra. And your north node cycles amplify, volume up, exacerbate, push, increase something in your life, whereas the south node cycles release, surrender, excrete, take away something in your life. So we're having an amplification of Aries, an amplification of the sign of war, and other things that Aries involves in world events. And actually, one of the cycles with Mars, with the north node in Aries, has been historically not just wars, but also assassinations and also massacres. Those three things track continuously every 18 years with these three narratives that I just gave you. Okay. We're going to go ahead and we're going to do the picture, and then we're going to do your sign. All right. I've got the graphic ready for your screenshot ability. And let me explain what this is. Oh, that's not the right graphic. I got two graphics. Give me a sec. That's the right graphic, but not the final version. Give me a sec. There we have it. So grab a screenshot. Hopefully this is going to be a useful tool for understanding the cycles of these eclipses in Aries every 18 and a half years. So there was an eclipse cycle in 1947, 1948, 49, really 1948, 49. But I didn't enter it in the graph because it's too squishy. But just remember that. And I'm going to talk about generally what happened during those cycles, right? So 1949, Mahatma Gandhi was assassinated, or 1948-9, but in the cycle of the eclipses through the Aries Libra axis, we had the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi. So there's an example of what I'm talking about, a world leader under duress. Aries is the sun is exalted in Aries. The sun is at home in Leo. Leo is the king or the ruler or the performer, and Aries is the warrior king. So there is a way when we see an eclipsing of the solar energy in the exaltation home of Aries, we see the eclipsing of exalted world leaders or figureheads. And so Mahatma Gandhi is an example. We also had massacres then. There was something in the Middle East called the Nakba, and that was actually a displacement of people, including massacre. So we had things going, that was the Middle East. And so we had things concerning assassinations and with massacres. Okay, those are the themes I'm telling you show up again and again. When we move into October of 1967-68, that's our rinse repeat cycle that we're currently in. In this graphic, you'll see how I have a little sun beside some of them. That means the sun energy is to say it's a solar eclipse, not a lunar eclipse in the sign of Aries. Solar eclipses will always occur in the spring, and lunar eclipse will always occur in Libra season in the fall when the moon is full across from the sun in Libra. So those little left-hand side suns and the right-hand side suns mean solar eclipse in the sign of Aries. So you'll notice that March 28th, 1968, we had an 8 degrees Aries eclipse, and this one is at 9 degrees, just so you know. That is uncanny because it's so close to the same degree. In the wake of that, Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy Sr. were assassinated within, I believe, one of the assassinations was in April. Martin Luther King was April 4th. And in June, Robert Kennedy Sr. was assassinated. So again, we have prominent figures who are leaders like Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King, and of course a political figure who was bucking against the system during an election year with Nixon, etc. So again, we keep seeing these things occur. I have said this 100 times, but we're in Groundhog Day from 1968. And let me repeat it just one more time for new people here. In 1968, not only were we having eclipses in Aries, but we were also having the North Node ingressing into Aries, where the North Node is now as well. And because there's a wound in the sign of war and exalted leadership, there's a lot of similarities because Lyndon Baines Johnson decided to step down from running again for the election, although he did it pretty late in the game for health reasons, end quote, and thought that he wasn't going to win. And instead, he put Hubert Humphreys in, his vice president, who ran instead. Does that sound like a little familiar story from our story last year? At the same time, there was a Democratic National Convention in Chicago. Yes, rinse, repeat. At the same time, there was an attempt of assassination on Donald Trump in the summer. Don't forget, this is where we saw Robert Kennedy, who was running for election, wanted to get into the election, assassinated. So we note these cycles because we realize even in 1968, there were mass protests in universities by students, sit-ins, and all of that protesting the war in Vietnam. And the Nixon, the Republican candidate during that election year, ran on the premise of stopping the war. And indeed, of course, what we saw happen is that he did win, and he did not stop the war, but he supposedly tried. I don't know enough details. I'm a Canadian, but you'll get the gist of, Trump running on a premise of stopping the war. So a lot of overlapping themes are going on in that year. You can see them. It's rinsing it and repeating itself as Donald Trump is declaring he's trying to stop the Ukraine-Russia war. All right, but we see the assassination themes and the massacre themes. There was the famous Vietnam My Lai massacre that, in which villagers were massacred by soldiers. I believe the soldiers were also American. So we have massacre stories again. When we move forward, and we look at April 18th of 1986, because we come into the 86 to 87 cycle, we have a 19 degrees solar eclipse. And also in March 29th of 1987, we have a closer one to this one, 8 degrees Aries, right? This one is 9 degrees of Aries. So let me tell you a bit about what happened if you're interested in that time frame. That might be of any interest to you or curiosity. And I'm just going to grab my notes because my mind remembers it's a Russian spy that was assassinated. And I want to make sure I've got that right. Notable assassinations in my notes. Okay. Right. And by the way, when I go back, because I forgot to mention it, and I go back to Mahatma Gandhi being assassinated, there was also other things going on. There was a New Jersey assassination, a mass murder called the Walk of Death in Camden, New Jersey. And it was the first major mass shooting in the United States after World War II, happened in 1949. So we have those kinds of weird repeats, mass shooters, mass shootings, massacres, assassinations. Isn't this cheerful? All right, 1986-87, we had the assassination of the Prime Minister of Sweden on February of 1986, corresponding with the eclipse portal that was open at that time. And then in October of 1987, the former president of Burkina Faso was assassinated by soldiers in a coup. And his name was Sankara. He was the Che Guevara of the time, apparently a Pan-Africanist who led a simple lifestyle, reduced his salary and that of public servants, and increased the literacy rate, according to Wikipedia. But I'm pretty sure there was a regime change coup by some government that wasn't just his buddy soldiers that overtook him in Burkina Faso. But that was a 1987 coup, but also an assassination. So, and Olaf Palme, the Prime Minister of Sweden as well, was assassinated. So again, political figures and the word unaliving. I shouldn't be using the A word because it'll get me off this platform. And finally, there was a mass murder shooting and mass murder suicide on Queen Street in Australia. 9 people were killed. Queen Street in which city in Australia? Melbourne, I think, but I can't remember. Sorry. 9 people were killed, including the perpetrator. And by the way, this idea of, mass shootings and mass killings is really interestingly, strangely connected to this cycle, because although we have them a lot during the Aries North Node cycles. Also in 2000 and now we're done that. Now we finished 1987. We talk about the shooting and the people killed. Now we're going to move ahead to 2006. The next cycle, we saw Alexander Litvinenko and Anna, don't ask me to pronounce it, Politkovskaya were both killed in 2006. The first guy was a KBG agent, and he was poisoned with radioactive substances. How nice! And the woman was the woman was a journalist, I believe, a writer and a journalist, a human rights activist who was basically dismissing Putin or being contrary to what he wanted to do in the country, known for her criticism of Putin and of the Second Chechen War. But anyway, Anna was also killed during that year, and these were suspected or known assassinations. So the cheerful part about this is we're seeing it already. Here we are, the grand finale eclipse in Aries, and what do we see? We see things like someone driving a car in Germany into a Christmas market, someone driving a car on New Year's Eve into New Orleans streets. These are mass murders, mass shootings, that kind of thing. But we also saw the attempt on Donald Trump's life, the assassination. We also saw Israel assassinate world leaders as well. And we all wonder why the helicopter went down with the president of Iran in May of 2024 in an apparent mysterious fog bank. Well, the nearby helicopter was fine, and all said and done, of course, we all know that that was an assassination. So we're seeing the theme again of assassinations returning as expected. Donald Trump, I think, is still in harm's way. I've said this in many videos. I don't think the pace of change, the velocity of change he's trying to implement, the controversial way in which he's doing it, and the bureaucratic and existing structures that are beyond any one presidency and executive office are not happy with it, including, of course, vested interests in the military industrial complex. So because he wants to pull out of wars, which make money to the rich and the people who run them. So ultimately, my concern is really importantly evident that it is not just this eclipse, which I'll talk about, but the March eclipse, but also the Leo full moon that we just had. Also, Uranus over his midheaven, again, Mars ingressing through the house of hospitals and over his ascendant coming up in the next 2 months. He's up for another attempt on his life. And I did predict within about 2 weeks of his assassination attempt to the date, I said around July 15th, he would be in harm's way. I explained the astrology of why in the summer. And my channel kind of blew up because people found my prediction and said, oh my God, you got it right. But astrology is pattern recognition. And sometimes we get the patterns right and sometimes we get them wrong. The Pope is very ill and he's a man of great renown, but he's not being assassinated. So if the Pope passes, it's not connected to these eclipses per se. So you know what I mean? So we're looking for the darker side of someone of height and renown passing. Okay. So here we have on the right-hand side, you can see that April 19th of 2023, there was at 29 degrees Aries, an eclipse. It was a little bit interesting because the node of fate was an early Taurus. And by the way, pretty well on Joe Biden's moon. And I remember when that eclipse was going on April 19th, 2023 in Aries with the node of fate pretty close to Joe's moon, that I sort of suggested that would be the downfall of Joe Biden and he would not be running for president, that his health would have him step aside, in which it did. And that was on my channel and it was predicted. Now, the moon is your health as well, your vital force, your prana and your chi, but also your public appeal as a politician. And having an eclipse connected to his moon like that was, to say the very least, inauspicious. April the 8th, 2024 at 19 degrees of Aries, we had a total solar eclipse swath across the United States, and the node was in Aries as well. So it was a pure Aries eclipse. It was right on Chiron, helping us to eclipse the chironic wound of war in the soul of humanity. Chiron was the mentor of the healers and heroes, but he told Achilles and Hercules not to kill the beasts in the forest unless it was for food, to not only fight and kill for defense, not for any other reason. And the noble warrior, the noble soldier archetype is Chironic, because Chiron was the mentor for those elements of reality in this mythology. And so when someone comes into office and says they're going to stop wars, right? Nixon said the same thing. Trump is saying the same thing, whether he can do it or not. We'll see. It is the nature of Chiron. So Chiron being enmeshed in that eclipse that happened in April 2024 has led us to this particular political situation in the United States. I'm Canadian. I'm talking politics by astrology, not personal opinion. March the 29th, 2025, 9 degrees of Aries, actually really close, like it's 9 degrees and 0 minutes, if I remember correctly. The node is in Pisces, but the eclipse is in Aries, and it's the grand finale of a cycle of change. During this April of 2023 to March of 25, we've seen an overlap of the same energies we saw in 68, 67, with the election of a president, Republican president taking over from a Democratic president in the same manner, in the same way. It's eerie, but also promising that they were going to be there to stop a war. Of course, Nixon had a massive downfall later on with the impeachment scandal, and it was inauspicious, to say the least, what happened later for him. And there's lots of inauspiciousness circumstances around this particular winning of Donald Trump, connected to patterns with the nodes of fate. Harris had the North Node traveling through Pisces, which could have indicated that she should have been more successful. And technically, when the nodes are squaring the ascendant or an angular house, the history of American elections puts that candidate in the winning spot. So when President Trump won in 2016 against the incumbent president who was running back then, Hillary Clinton, against Hillary Clinton, Trump's chart wasn't as strong as Hillary's when we looked at the nodes. And so he won, but then he had, oh no, I got it right. Sorry. No, I'm wrong. What it was is when Trump lost the election, stop the steal. When he lost the election, he had the stronger chart and Biden had the weaker chart, using this nodal pattern that's 90% accurate, which would indicate that because Biden won, even though he had the nodal weakness, he would be in harm's way by health or unaliving during his presidency or scandal. And of course, it was his health, apparently, that he didn't run. And then when we look at the same thing for Trump, in some ways, Harris had a much stronger chart when it comes to the nodes of fate. And that means this is an inauspicious 4-year term for Donald Trump, which I'm sorry for you people out there who think I'm telling you I don't like Donald Trump because I'm worried that he's in harm's way. You got it completely wrong. I don't like or dislike. I'm telling you that because the nodes were not favoring him upon his election to the current presidency, he, like Joe Biden, will suffer some kind of defeat, scandal, health challenge, or difficulty in his 4-year term. I fully do not expect him to fulfill the 4 years. That's what I'll say. Now, with the node in Pisces, we also come into another narrative. We're going to be breaching 2 houses in our chart, the Aries whole sign house and the Pisces whole sign house. So we're going to go ahead and do your sign. I'm going to be doing a follow-up video on this. This is not the only one, but I want to talk to you really quickly about the Sabian symbol, and then we're going to do your sign. My very beat-up book, The Sabian Symbols by Diana E. Roche, A Grain of Prophecy. Everything you need to know about this is in the description box below. So go to my description box and you'll find all my favorite books. And they're not even on a Amazon store. They're just, hey, go find them yourself. So 10 degrees of Aries, 9 degrees of Aries rounds up to 10 degrees of Aries and Sabian symbols. We always round up, okay? So in rounding up, we get a very kind of boring and bland symbol, but I want to tell you what 11 degrees Aries is. 11 degrees of Aries is a president of a country. That's a symbol. And I'm concerned because in astrology, we have something called engagement, 3 degrees on either side. And as the eclipse occurs and the sun is eclipsed by the shadow of the moon, partial eclipse, we're also going to know that then the moon moves on to the Sabian symbol, a president of a country. This could be a inauspicious sign of the eclipsing of a president of a country. All right, here we go. Sabian symbol number 10, a man teaching new forms for old symbols, keyword interpretation. So it's basically a man is teaching about new forms for old symbols. And then keywords are going to be Well, I'll read a bit, okay? On a practical level, a good example is the difficulty of interpreting runes or ancient Mayan or Egyptian hieroglyphs in the light of our present day experience. The concepts they represent exist still, but there is little or no frame of reference for these older symbols in a modern age. Thus, new symbols are continually being created as the concepts they represent are dramatized in the common experience of individuals of every new age. So, at its highest, the symbol represents a genius for understanding and creating analogies and translating experience into symbolic imagery. Keywords are new understanding, updating, substitution, progress, analogy, explanation, translation, and education. It is all kind of vague. And I'm thinking to myself, new symbols, right? New symbols is really old forms, old symbols, new forms, something fresh, something new, replacing the old. Well, we're moving into a huge energy with the digital age, but also new forms of constellating power alliances into a multipolar world away from a hegemonic, imperialistic United States leader, sheriff, military superpower. And that's happening whether you like it or not. That's Pluto and Aquarius. And that's a cycle that repeats all the time. It always looks like this, where you get fractionated power structures and principalities and new divisions of power. So maybe that's some of the new symbology coming forward, because I'm recording this on Tuesday, March the 4th, and I'm hearing rumblings that Donald Trump wants to leave NATO, right? Donald Trump's an isolationist and he's transactional and he wants to use money for the growth of the strength of America. I'm not agreeing or disagreeing. I'm just saying that's what he's doing. He doesn't want to spend money on wars. He's not a part of the war machinery. He's not a part of the military industrial machinery complex. He's not a part of the people in power who are bought off who are bought off and tipped off by people who have companies that make weapons and machinery of war. There's always a reason for a war. There's nothing to do with what you think it is. It's always follow the money, follow the power. It's not about geopoliticals. It's about money and power and greed. So there you go. I've had the very great privilege of being very good friends with two people in intelligence agencies in the United States during the weapons of mass destruction fiasco. I knew the truth and they were disheartened, and they were career civil servants in two different agencies. I'm not going to name them. And I lived in the DC area then. And they almost quit their jobs. They were so disheartened, and they were career civil servants. So I knew there were no weapons of mass destruction. I knew that the war was a ruse for the Halliburton oil and the pipeline and a bunch of other stuff. And so, there's a lot of people who never question reality. They just kind of go with the sheeple flow. But if you've been on the inside edge of certain things, and I have been for many different reasons, I won't go into. My ex-husband of 20 years worked for the United Nations and the World Bank. Okay, enough said, right? You want to talk about corruption, greed, nepotism, and and United Nations not so much, actually. I mean, there are a lot of people there who are really there to do good, but there's a lot of nepotism there as well. Somebody wrote a book years ago about the United Nations called The Lords of Poverty. You should go read it. And my ex-husband, who worked at the United Nations, thought the book was very important, a very important book. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and do your sign. And when we do your sign, you're going to listen for your sun, moon, or rising. Take your pick. I explained in the intro, which is the way to listen, go back and start over. But also, I want you to know how to cast your chart in whole sign houses. It's really effective because the whole sign house system is the traditional house system, because you have distinct rulers of distinct locations in your chart, and you can activate what we call Time Lord tools. And if you don't use whole sign houses, you don't get that. Indian or Vedic astrology, sidereal, still uses whole sign houses. And we used to too, until we didn't. So modern astrology invented a bunch of other things like Placidus and Coke and Campanus. So your whole sign house system free video tutorial is in my description box, as well as my free 12 Meanings of the Houses PDF guidebook that you can download, as well as my free amazing asteroids course. Go find the asteroids for your mom, your dad, your place of birth, your friends, your family, your peccadillos, and see how amazing the asteroids are in your chart. Okay, you'll never look back. It's a rabbit hole. All those freebies are for you. They're in my description box below. Thank you. I'll go ahead now and delineate your sign. Of course, we're going to start with Aries. I'm an Aries sun and moon. We are getting it. We are in the thick of it. Like, holy man. I forgot to mention my Venus retrograde class. And it's already started. We had a class last Saturday, but if you want to join in, I'm closing the doors midnight Friday. If you miss it, then you can't get in. Sorry, guys. But check the description box below. You can start late, is what I'm saying. There's a discount code for 15% off. And if you want to join us, I will add you to the class. You'll get the replay that what you missed. Otherwise, no worries, no worries. We have a great crew of people in the Venus retrograde class already, and I'm happy with that. So, but if you wanted to come in, go ahead, check the description box. What's a description box? People always say, where do I find out about your website? And where do I find it? Well, first of all, there's an about section at the top of YouTube. But second of all, when you see the headline of a video, and then underneath it says more, just under the headline, click that, and that will take you to underneath the video. It's the show notes. Also, I pin the timestamps to your sign in the description box. I also pin the timestamps they're called chapters in the description box itself, not in the comments. I did it both places. And if you click the title of the video, it'll give you options to jump to your sign. Okay. And, or you can go to the comment section and jump to your sign. So the beginning of my videos is teaching, education, sometimes world astrology. The second part of my videos, all videos have all signs delineations. All right. And I'll be doing a follow-up video closer to the eclipse on March 29th. Lots of shit might have happened by then. But for now, we're getting ahead of this game and we're starting to understand this eclipse because we're already in the energy of the eclipse. I'm recording on March 4th. Believe me, March 29th, we're in like the backwash. We're feeling it. It's happening. It's in the flow. It's in the go. It's happening. So I want you to listen to this now because things that happen between now and March 29th and March 29th up to 3 months later, when you really feel the epicenter of the eclipse, are already in play. So let's get going. I think we'll spend about 5 minutes with each sign. So settle in, take your time, take a note. Like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you're new here. Thank you so much. My name is Lori Lothian. I don't even know if I introduced myself. All right. These are this is the sky. That's an Aries on the left-hand side. The 9 o'clock position is always the sign we're talking about. People always in the live comments during the premieres ask me what sign we're on, or ask somebody, and like, we'll just look to the 9 o'clock position. And if you know your glyphs, that's Aries, right? So Aries, sun, moon, and rising sign. First of all, you've been through it, right? So some of you can go back if you want, compare what was happening back in 86, 87. And we actually went through to 89, but like in the epicenter was 86, 87. What was happening in your life? What was happening in 2000 and, 6 kind of vibe? Remember that graphic I showed you, 2006, 2007? And, you can compare notes. You can go 2005, 2006. That's a closer episode to the epicenter of it back then. And some of you can go back if you want and compare. Everyone can compare, if you were alive to 1968 and stuff. So we have cycles that keep repeating. I want you to go back and compare notes. So this cycle is pretty closely connected to, hang on a sec, I just need to change the heat in my house before I go on. I'm having I can never get it. It's hot, it's cold, it's never perfect here. Hang on. I just went back and looked at my graphic and realized that I said 2025 for the 2005 cycle. Just ignore, you can figure out what I meant, right? You can figure out that I was talking about the 2005, 2006 eclipse cycle, but my graphic is kind of wonky. So my mistakes. 2004 to 2006 and 1986 to 1987 are what you're wanting to compare. Okay, those are the most important comparative times. 2004 to 2006, 1986 to 1987. All right, let's get going back to the graphic at hand. And here we have it. All right, Aries, back in the day, you in 2004 to 2006 and 1986 to 1987, you had a series of eclipses moving through the sign of Aries. These eclipses are back again and finishing up. You begin experiencing eclipses here in April of 2023. Please watch the intro. 24. And here we have March 29th of 2025. Obviously, if your sun, moon, or rising is close to the 9th degree of Aries, you're going to feel it more strongly. So I would say anybody close to that within 3 degrees of either side, it's a big deal for your sun, career, moon, home and nest and safety, rising sign, anything about your life. It can change the whole game. So keep it in mind. there's a chironic wound. You've been dealing with it maybe since 2019, an identity crisis, a sense of self that's all wonky and not quite right. You're not sure. You could have had physical problems with your health. You might have had challenges with how you feel about who you are in the world. And I can relate even from my sun and moon, right? I felt like the outcast, the outsider, that's Chiron, the one that doesn't belong during the pandemic because I didn't do the ineffective, unsafe vaccine. Oh, I know I said that word. That's a bad word on YouTube, protocols. And, as an outcast, I was an outsider. I was also despised and reviled and blocked from going to any kind of place. So that's how it felt for me. I don't know how it felt for you. And I also had a shit ton of health problems since 2019. So you especially the moon, Aries moon, the moon's like the ascendant, can represent vital force energies to connected to your body, right? The home for your soul. So yeah. So some of us have been through it. Now, one thing I want to say about this last eclipse, because it's kind of finishing up from the eclipse of April of 2024 on Chiron, this is like mopping up any last vestiges of an unhealed chironic wound connected to identity and not feeling like you belong, because chironic wounds can be the outcast wound as well as the health wound here. And I want to say that in order for you to be more whole and more healed and more at one atonement with yourself, then you're looking at Mercury, the god of ideas, insights, the dream messenger, parked his butt up against this moon. And so this eclipse, this new moon. And so there's something about you being able to receive the information or the news that you need up to a month before and 3 months after this eclipse, even up to 6 months after for a solar eclipse already, where you now know what it is you need to feel more whole and more healed and more well, spiritually, mentally, and physically. The Lord of the eclipse is Mars in a broad square. Mars is not necessarily helpful here. He is in a place of his fall, but it could lead to a change of identity connected to a change of residence. And that means that in the year after this eclipse, some of you may change your home based on where Mars is sitting. The node of fate is actually happening in your 12th house. And the 12th house is your subconscious, your Akashic records, your past lives, your inner work, your solitude, your aloneness, your contemplation, your spiritual liberation. It's also a place of hidden enemies and self-undoing, where you are your own worst enemy, and it can involve addictions and self-sabotaging misbehaviors. So at this point, you might be ready to let that go, because this is a North Node, is tackling it head on, but also you're healing the identity wound connected to these self-sabotaging elements of your life, and karmic and ancestral patterns that can also be realized and revealed and amplified for your healing, because you see them so strongly. They're so in your face. Mars in the house of the family of origin and the ancestors as well. Chironic wounds, and the node in the house of, the soul's past lives. There's a bunch of karmic and ancestral stuff coming up for your inspection in the wake of this lunation. So pay attention. And finally, if you make money through foreign lands and foreign shores and distant shores and marketplaces abroad, especially digital and foreign land income and borderless revenue, that's 12th house stories. You're maybe an increase of, so those things are on the increase, and it's also helping you heal your identity. And you may have an increase of expenses or a desire to move your home to a foreign shore. And that move your home to a foreign or distant shore, it could be out of state, across your country. Like it's a distant shore from where you live. A distant shore is a 12th house meaning. So it doesn't have to be another country, but it could be another part of your own country, for example. And with Mars at the 4th house, as the ruler of this eclipse that's identified with you, the Aries, there's a chance of moving quite a distance away from your current location. We're not talking about a neighborhood hop. Lastly, Jupiter is all gung-ho to help out. He's basically in a sextile to this particular eclipse, and he's really happy to say, I'm here to help. Let me bring you some bounty and some enthusiastic success and some prosperity in writing, communicating, traveling, social media, learning, and teaching. And it'll help heal that identity wound and help soothe and make you much more whole. I love the way that Jupiter is also eyeballing the chironic wound with Mercury. A lot of you might be able to really deeply understand some things that you've gone through in your life in a new way, have new ideas about who you are because of this eclipse, and reframe your identity. A whole new version of you can be masterminded. I am, woman hear me roar, or whatever, some new I am statement may come off of this eclipse, and it's coming deep from under the surface of you. It's like you're excavating all the stuff that isn't you from childhood, from past lives, from self-sabotaging habits that have obscured your truest essence. And now you're ready to sort of see the way through to a new you. So it's a very big new you energy in a way that none of the other eclipses have been so far, because this one bleeds through to the liberation of the 12th house. Oh, that is so weird. It's not letting, oh, it's going forward by minutes. I think my software is not working. There we go. Taurus. Taurus, sun, moon, and rising. Well, starting in 2019, Chiron may have said, you got a wound about your childhood. You got a wound about your ancestral line. You got a wound about maybe your past lives. You got to look closely here. Chiron is pointing you that way. But then Chiron also notices that the sun is helping out with the big solar eclipse of 2024. And even since 2023's eclipse, you've been looking more clearly at how your identity can change, your Taurus identity from April 2023, in regards to investigating your self-sabotage, own worst enemy, substance misuse, disorders, and addictions, how you are the one who lets yourself down. And so because you're now able to understand clearly your own complicity and your own lack of thrival in life, you're able to begin to change that with the eclipses. This is also a very important eclipse because Mercury, the dream messenger, is here. And this 12th house is prone to insights that come from meditations and reveries and dreams. And you may get some kind of information or insight into yourself that's pretty profound up to a month before this eclipse and up to 3 months after. You might also find that this eclipse brings you into an alignment with something to do with deeper spiritual wisdom, a desire to go on a pilgrimage or to investigate a spiritual path, or even an occult mysteries path as well. Mercury loves to learn. Because the Lord of the eclipse, the planetary ruler, is in the 3rd house, this is also an indication of perhaps a change in your relationship to a sibling younger than you, to some aunt, uncle, cousin, niece, nephew, neighbor, childhood friend, or even a change in a relationship to somebody, to some situation that you're going through in your daily life, like commuting to work, or, the local environment in which you live, and, just changing your neighborhood maybe. So there's changes in those areas that could show up to even a year after this eclipse. Because Mars is in a condition of fall, you might feel like you have a falling out with that younger sibling, with that friend, with that ally, with that, not friend, with that friend, with that neighbor, with that person in your local community as well. The node itself is in the 11th house, indicating a crossing over of themes from both the 12th and the 11th. The 12th house is receiving some flow from that node in the 11th. And so also a sense of wanting to aspire to actualize some dreams and goals and wishes that are very Neptunian and very Saturnian, realistic but fantastical, magical and true, make believe but possible, And so you really are kind of coming into a window of time where the amplification of the North Node here, seen in such a way that goes back to the mid 1800s, it's nice and rare, wants to amplify your ability to manifest or make real and tangible some cherished and whimsical and magical dreams and goals. This can also look like in the month before and up to a year later. Most likely you'll notice within 3 months of the eclipse what it's about, sometimes 6 months. What it is you want to do to increase your career success. These are the gains of the career house. You got to make money. You got to get a paycheck. You got to get a raise. You got to get a promotion. This is your up level in the career house. And so what is it there for as you ascend, as you rise up? What is it that you're here to increase in terms of worldly success in connection to work and career and purpose? And so there you go. You may expand your social circles as well as you create a healthier, as you get rid of some of your self-undoing and self-sabotaging storylines. You could end up here coming into a new community, a new alliance of friends and social groups, people who really have your back, people who are your allies, who want to benefit you, people you want to have around because they're your people. So this new tribe seems to want to form in the wake of this eclipse. I expect your social groups to change dramatically. Some of you, because of that Mars structure down there and the 12th house, pilgrimages and foreign travel, long distance travel, journeys for soul searching, might meet new people that become a part of your true calling, your true tribe, your chosen tribe, your chosen family as a result of this eclipse. Hey, and you've been dealing with that Uranus thing since 2018, right? Lots of radical upsets and change, especially on Algol lately. Whew. So yes, holy man, right? Hang in there, you Tauruses. Gemini, sun, moon, and rising sign. It is a sky on a grand finale, third Aries eclipse. Like I said in the beginning, all these eclipses can take you back to the past, but they're always different. It's a lot like 2005, 2006. It's a lot like 2004 to 2006. You really could go that distance. And it's a lot like 1987, 1988, 1986, 1987, more particularly. If I was in this eclipse cycle for you, which is connecting you to changes in your social groups and friendship circles and your career goals and wishes and dreams and gains in your life from your career, okay, I'd be welcoming this change. This eclipse is got a Mercury component. And in this particular placement, Mercury is very much capable of delivering marketing, mercurial things, merchandising, marketing, commerce, and business success in your career gains house, okay, and in conjunction with healing that chironic wound here. It's interesting because this chironic wound since 2019 has had some Geminis feeling that while they're making money and doing their thing, there's a deeper part of them that feels quite unwell about it, unwounded by it. I have a progressed Gemini sun and my health is suffering because I'm working so damn hard on my YouTube /teaching /astrology career. It's like the gilded cage. And so I need to get some exercise. This girl's going to move around. So, there's wounds that come from success, right? Like all that glitters is not gold. And the Midas touch turns the loved ones into gold. So you need to figure out something here to this eclipse is going to help for some Geminis, help you dispense with something, because the North Node is amplifying your 10th house, increasing your career success, your reputation, having you strive for more worldly career success anyway, or bringing changes into your career. This eclipse in the 11th also says, and does it heal the wound? Are these changes going to allow you to, have a more balanced life, to have a social circle that really fits you, to gain the money in ways that don't cause challenges to your mental, physical, or emotional wellness, of those kinds of things? There may be an eclipsing here of a friend, somebody who isn't really a friend, and their ally benefactor status is like on the downgrade, downgrade. You might end up leaving a friendship behind because of this eclipse, and maybe you've left some behind already from the April of 23 and April 24 eclipses, and maybe you're narrowing down the friendship groups to those people who are going to make the cut. Now, there is an element of having Mars in the second house, cutting, severing, and snipping, and in the sign of his fall, that you're going to maybe change the way you earn money. Like you may change your job, you may change your career, like wholesale change of career, but you're going to change something on the financial and career story, because Mars squares the eclipse in the house of gains from the career, in the house of earnings and money in general. So there's definitely a pivot point for you. And Mars is fallen. This is the classic workaholic energy when Mars is like this, fallen in the second or the sixth house. And so you're probably going to find that this is a case where you need to pull back on your aggressiveness or your lack of balance in some way in the way you're making money. I kind of picture Mars in the water like this, dog paddling, and he's exhausted. He's exhausted in the second house. Oh my God, got to keep going, got to make money, got to keep going, got to make money. And he's tired, like he's not good in water. He's a fiery energy. He's a hot planet. The red planet is supposed to be warm, at least. Okay, but it's not for real. I know that. But the astrological significances of heat, he finds his happiness in the fire sign of Aries as well. I would say that you're going to notice with this because Jupiter is really sort of overall, like you have a divine protection. Jupiter in the sign of Gemini, it's not always good. I know some people said, oh no, I didn't get a happy time because, Jupiter's been here since last May and my life's been a shitstorm. And I'm like, well, first of all, it depends on your natal Jupiter and it depends on your Time Lord status and it depends on, but in general, Jupiter went retrograde for several months, right? It was like June to like October. And then he was off duty. And then he finally got his speed back up, which he's got now through to June 9th. So don't give up yet. In general, for Geminis, Jupiter's watching over you, protecting that sun, protecting that moon, protecting your rising sign. He's a benevolent planet. He's a benefic. He's giving you good stuff. However, I always say with Jupiter, he's a little bit like he's wise, He's a guru, dispels the darkness. He's going to give you what you need, not what you always want. That's always true for Jupiter. And so in this case, you're still divinely protected, but you're going to get what you need, not what you want. And what you need is going to be better for you in the long run. So when it comes to Jupiter here, the end of that home, relationship, career path, these are Jupiter endings. He's angular to those houses, but he gives you what you need for your greater good over the long game of your life. With this energy, finally, I want to say one more thing about it, of the energy here of this nodal overlay between 10 and 11, there is a possibility for some of you of a change in relationship with a father figure. And if there is, then it could also be intense, like, falling out, but also you never know. It's a solar eclipse. So the sun, which represents father figures, is being eclipsed, but because the North Node is in the 10th house of the father, therefore literal fathers eclipse from your life can happen as a possibility. Your chart is specific. This is just a very general bell curve statement. Well, we're on the merry-go-round, aren't we? Change is happening and we have no steering wheel. So if you are a Cancer, sun, moon, and rising sign, the eclipse is occurring in your 10th house, as it did in April of 23, April of 24, and this is a grand finale of changes in your career, reputation, and visible stature, social standing, and actions in the world that people witness you doing. Okay, it's like high noon at the OK Corral. It's the zenith of the sun, the height of the day. So what people notice you doing is often our career or our purpose. But we also could be retired. If you're a student, your career purpose is to be a student. If you're retired, what are you doing? Share in the comments. I always have a bit of a judgment about, I'm retired and I play golf and that's all I do. I'm like, okay, how about give back to society? How about be a mentor or guide or teach or help or heal or go on a spiritual quest and find God and help us all get enlightened, So the recreating retirees always kind of annoy me. I just have to say it out loud, but I'll never retire because I'm a work bee. I've always loved working on something that I enjoy anyway. So the chironic wound in the 10th house of that career space, wasn't there for those other eclipses back in 2004 to 2006 or 1986, 87. There was no energy like this back then, so you don't have a direct comparison, although back then changes may have happened in the career space. All right, and maybe the home space where you live and what your career stuff is about. Now with this energy now involving Chiron, where you've been feeling a bit of a chironic wound about true purpose, using your gifts and talents, having a meaningful, purposeful career or purpose in life, whether you're retired or not. You've been feeling this wound since 2019. It kind of completes full on by 2027. And as you're still working through this, you had a massive eclipse to the chironic wound in April of 24. On that eclipse. And it's possible this is just a mopping up afterwards, the last bit, the tail end of it all, where you're making those final turning points, decisions, and actions that allow for change in your wounded purpose career vibration. With Mars in your 11th house, your first house, you are taking the bull by the horns or the water pistol by the handle or the floaty toy by the, by your kicking flappers or something, because you got Mars in your sign. You're the one making decisions. You're the one taking actions. You're the one aligning with what you want to do. You're the one getting ready to be the action hero of your own life. in the water sign, be careful because your emotions will run high, and the sort of the berserker, emotionally fraught, super emo version of you can be very active these days. And that was true all of September, October. And then it became true again when Mars got back into this part of your sky, which would have been December 6th, and he leaves here mid-April. So your emotions can run really high. You're steaming, right? You're steaming hot sometimes. So be careful. On the other, and be careful for injuries as well, especially with hot water, literally, or slipping on water or something like that. But those things aside, Mars is looking at the eclipse in his house. He's the dispositor, and he says, I want you to make fundamental changes to your purpose and career, social standing and reputation that are about carving away all that is not you. Here we go with my Zen parable. Master, how do you carve the perfect elephant every time from the block of jade? Says that student to the Zen master carver. The master carver says back, I carve away all that is not elephant. You can carve with Mars all away all that is not you. What is not you? What doesn't really fit you? Who are you really not? It's not about what you add when Mars is moving through your sign. It's what you decide to cleave away. Cut the dead wood off the rose bush, cut the gangrene limb off the body. Let go and release what it isn't really truly who you are, because your career wants to be coming off that Mars cutting, of the identity structures of the character of you, especially for the Cancer risings. For the Cancer sun, you're going to cut away something that has to do with a false purpose and career, and the moons maybe cut away where you live because it's the wrong place for you, for example. But like ultimately, the cutting away leads to this last sort of glowy, flowy healing of the chironic wound in the house of career and purpose. A lot of help from Jupiter. He's flowing from the 12th house. Do you want to take your career international? Do you want to go live in another country to work on something else? Do you want to have a career that gives you a lot of time to study, learn? Do you want some kind of new career path that involves a guide, mentor, teacher, guru? All very possible. The node is actually in your 9th house. The 9th house is the house of God. And Jupiter's in the house of ashrams, and there's pilgrimages and ashrams all over this chart. Some of you might just, join the monastery. You're going to find that there's joy, enjoyment, and satisfaction in being alone, says Jupiter. And with the North Node amplifying the 9th house, if you don't have a spiritual tradition, if you don't have a spiritual path, you don't meditate every day, you don't chant, you don't do anything, you're going to start doing some more of that, or start doing that for the first time. The amplification of the North Node with Saturn and Neptune in the 9th house can be to realize some cherished goals and visionary dreams to do with education. And some of you with this kind of combination will end up learning, going back to university or school, signing up for some kind of program of mentorship or study. Something may want to call you into a learning environment. Otherwise, you could have a major career change connected to book publishing and publications in general. So keep that in mind. Maybe you're going to get a book publishing deal. Maybe you're going to leave your day job. Maybe your day job is book publishing and you're going to change that. Who knows? And remember, you can try to compare cycles, but with Chiron, it's a very different energy this time around. All right, moving into the next sign. Leo, sun, moon, and rising sign. It is a sky that says you're going to have, just like in April of 23 and April of 2024, a last grand finale, March 29th, eclipse in Aries, solar, North Node. Yes, it goes back to 2004 to 2006. Yes, it goes back to 1987, 1986, 87. So what is it you're going to do this, like those times, to make a significant change in your 9th house of God? Well, it is also the house of the father in Indian astrology, and I understand why, and I think it works very well. So you could also have a father figure eclipse from your life, healing a wound with a father figure, healing a wound around higher education and academics and post-secondary education, healing a wound around a legal court case matter, or a wound around foreign distant shores and peoples. And so with this chironic wound in healing mode, trying to heal through these eclipses, and with Mercury here this time, Mercury is about information and, maybe paperwork or negotiations and ideas. Mercury is hugging the eclipse. And so he is retrograde, and that's a more complicated story, but it is still Mercury there. And in a way, Mercury wants you to consider what kind of news or information could come to you closer to this eclipse. in a very positive way that informs your desire to study, to learn, to travel, to find a spiritual path. And with Jupiter in your 11th house sextiling this eclipse, it's possible that it's a positive formation there. There may be some allies, benefactors, a sibling, one older, someone in your social circles who seriously wants to step in and support some kind of positive change in the 9th house for you. Maybe it's also possibly helping you with financial matters so that you can indeed, like, say, pursue an educational path or travel abroad or move to another country even. And the reason I say move to another country is that Mars, or a distant shore. So the difference between another country and a different shore, you can move to a distant shore. So again, out of state, out of province. That's because Mars is in the house of distant shores and he squares the eclipse. And there may be a distant shore move in the year that follows this eclipse for some of you. So yes, not a neighborhood move, right? Not just down the street. The North Node is amplifying the 8th house. This is not like the eclipse of April of 2023. That was amplifying the 10th house of career. This eclipse is focused on joint monies in the house of death and chunky money. What kind of joint monies are they? Well, it could be a book publishing revenues from, what do you call it, passive income, royalty income. You share the money, shared income with a publisher. You share the money with your spouse. You share the money, shareholders, with the corporations that you invest in. Those derivative shared resources, unearned income, other people's money, like hubby's money or wife's money, are going to have changes. The North Node is volume up, amplification, intensity, success. This could be really good for your 401k, your investments. I mean, I know the markets are turbulent. You're your own person. This could also bring inheritances. So North Node is amplification of chunky money in the house of inheritance. The North Node is coming off of the house of the father with a solar eclipse. A father figure could be eclipsed. I'm just saying, some of you, this is for a couple of signs, right? We've noticed a similar pattern for the Cancers, that you could have the eclipsing of a father figure in your life. And a father figure doesn't have to be your father. It could be your uncle, it could be your granddad, it could be, your partner, your husband's like 1,000 years older. You look up to him like a dad. I don't know. So there's a quality of father figures energetically. So what is this authoritative father figure eclipsing about? They could lead to some money for you. That's how I'll say it. Similarly, in completing a legal matter with a court settlement and judgment, it would judge in your favor, perhaps, for a gain or increase through a legal determination by a judge. That would be Mercury backtracking into the 8th house and then back into Aries again during his retrograde cycle, because this would be about legal negotiations back and forth for shared resources or expenditures or money, especially in spousal separations as well. And, you're a Leo and the sun rules you, right? And the sun is trining you. So ultimately, this is a very positive energy, despite it being an eclipse. You're in a beautiful flow and a Dharma trine flow to this eclipse, as you are in all of the eclipse cycles going back 2004, 6, 86, 87. So even the changes then should have been less difficult than not. But remember that chironic wound. Have you been wounded because you went to university and studied the wrong thing, or you didn't go and you should have, or because you're, legal and court case matters are dragging you down? Are you wounded here since 2019 because you don't have a spiritual path, you don't believe in God, you have no spiritual philosophy, or you have a wounded relationship with the father figure? So this is all about to change. It's trying to mop up, is what I'm saying. Finish up, clean it up. And that's what I got for you. All right, so if you are a Virgo, sun, moon, and rising, this is an eclipse that's occurring in your 7th house and, 8th house. And that's, I keep talking about, because we overlap themes from 2 houses. This is indeed your chunky money house. So an eclipse here is a 3rd eclipse, because you had one in 23, you had one in 24, and now we have one here in the spring of this year. So there is an attempt to change the way you share money with other people. So if you're in a significant relationship, it's a change in how you share your joint resources. I have a Virgo girlfriend. I've just seen that happen in her relationship to her partner. They've changed the way they handle their joint monies together during this cycle. This is also the inheritance house. And there is a possibility of an inheritance. Now, you've got a chironic wound here in the inheritance house since 2019. I often tell the story, my daughter doesn't mind, of how she blew through grandma's inheritance in one summer when she was in 2019. So she has a wound there. She feels bad about it. Maybe a wound around taxes, credit card debts, mortgage problems too for some people, financial challenges with shared monies with lenders, in other words, right? So those challenges, those wounds are there, and there's a healing that wants to happen from the eclipse in April of last year, but especially this one to finish it up. Just so you remember, 2004 to 2006 and 1987 to 88 are most closely aligned with these eclipse cycle times in the past. However, they do not include a chironic wound. For that, you have to go back to 68. Watch my intro, 1968. Because you actually have Mars, the dispositor of the eclipse, in the 11th house, squaring the eclipse, there can be a very intense, challenging energy of dispute or difficulty with a sibling, one older, or a friend or a benefactor, and over financial and monetary matters. And with Pluto in the house of indebtedness, there's a possibility of a crash in a relationship over money owed or money resources. Like you lend money to someone and you want it back, and they're fighting to say no or something like that, especially from the 11th house. Now, the 11th house is also the gains of your career, and this is connected to a 8th house matter. So there may be some kind of changes in the career story itself that lead to some changes in your longer range shared resources with other people. I wonder too, Mars is really busy here, and he's been floating through here, dog paddling ardently since on and off, to September, October, and then since December 6th, here to mid-April, that maybe some of you are really wanting to change, not even your job, but the actual career gains themselves, like the way you make the money. Because it's kind of like, it's second from the 10th house. So the 10th house is the thing you're doing and the gains of the thing you're doing. Here, give me some money, give me a raise, give me a promotion. Mars is saying, let's change the structures. Like, so some of you might actually get involved in making money off of investments, making money off of passive income, making money or just using money that comes from inheritances. For example, you see what I'm saying? That's what I got for you. Jupiter is protecting your career and reputation anyway at the top of the sky, giving you luck in job, career, reputation, and money matters. He'll be up there until June 9th. And he does watch this eclipse from a friendly sextile and sort of suggests that he's kind of giving you a little help. And so you still have, no matter what happens, a super solid sort of divine protection around your career matters and your reputation and your visible actions in the world, while at the same time, you're dispensing some change in the financial way you integrate money and earnings from career. I'll give you an example. You do get an inheritance in the next year after this eclipse. All right? It happens. And then you decide that you're going to go part-time in your work and give yourself time to relax or learn a new discipline while you do one job, but less hard, less work, less ambition. This cycle is repeatable and rinsable. Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. You know what I'm saying? So go back and look at what happened in 2004 to 2006. So my daughter happens to be a Virgo rising, and she got an inheritance back then as well. Okay, that was an inheritance from the passing of my mom. Well, she got it then, but she didn't get it till she was older, but it was dispensed at that time. So consider that this is a cycle that repeats, and you might be able to go back and make some comparisons, is all I'm saying. And with the node of fate in the 7th house, we also add the element of significant long-term committed business partners and love partners, as well as audience and marketplace for those of you who have audience marketplace, because the 7th house is 10th house it's the public from your career, right? 10th house from the 10th. So possibly you're going to find yourself quite capable here of having some expansion and an amplification and intensity regarding your long-term committed love story and the money story, but in a positive way. Particularly because when Jupiter moves into Cancer, he's going to exalt your 11th house and flow to your primary love story. There's also the possibility that your significant other comes into some money, whether through increasing their career success or through something to do with inheritance. And so it may not be your inheritance. With the North Node in the house of partners, this may literally be about them. Finally, seventh house is legal contracts, deals, and negotiations. And we do have that Neptune Saturn energy for dreams come true. Possibly there's another way to code this. You could be falling in love with somebody brand new, coming off of a secret love affair. Like it was under wraps, you weren't telling anybody. And then, this relationship gets to expand over the next year and a half, coming off of the secrets of the eighth house. Let's see what happens, Virgo. Let me know. Okay. So Libra, sun, moon, and rising sign. First things first, right, Libra? Let's go with the idea that you've been doing eclipses, 2004, 2006, 1980, before that, 1987, 88. Those eclipses have been happening back then in your seventh house, and they're back again, 2023, 24, and now the last one, this March 29th of 25. Your seventh house is long-term committed love, significant business and love partnerships, audience for your career, marketplace, the public that sees your career, significant legal transactions, agreements, and vows, and open enemies. Now, you've had a chironic wound in this house since 2019, unlike the past eclipses. So you're dealing with healing something to do with relationship, to do with business partners, maybe to do with open enemies, some people betraying you that you thought were, your people. And this wound, this energy is wanting to get done, finish it up, close it up already. That's what it means because of the eclipses here. And this is kind of the last, mop up. It's like you swept the floor and you're going back to look for the crumbs of what's wrong here. Now, some of you attracted wounded partners, right? People with chironic wounds. Their partner has a wound. They have a problem. You're trying to help them. But also just the idea of committed partnership in business and love and the challenges you've had are to be noted since 2019, or legal challenges or contractual challenges, etc. Now, the eclipse is ruled by Mars in the 10th house, and this could also be a big, public standing and social standing and reputation is the 10th house. Mars is fallen. Oh no, I can't get up. And he rules your marriage house. If you're in an unstable relationship and it's not for you, then Mars could show you that you will have a fall from stature connected to a significant business or love relationship. So a big falling out with your significant other. On the other hand, you may also have a major change in your career that requires a shift, and legal contracts and negotiations involved with that as well. Jupiter is giving you protection and support from the ninth house. But given that there's a bigger story going on with Mars, that could also indicate changes in career connected to foreign lands, pilgrimages, distant travels to foreign places, especially with the South Node in the 12th. And some of you may change your career because may move to a distant place because there's a change of your career with a foreign company, or you may change your location and therefore your career. These are things that I could possibly make of this for sure. Jupiter protects you on legal matters, especially regarding lawsuits. And I'm going to bring lawsuits up. Mars is a god of lawsuits and legal actions and controversial things like that. And you've got the North Node in the 6th house of enemies, but also litigation and legal disputes. And so there's a big energy for some of you Libras where you might go into battle over lawsuits and legal contracts and settlements. In what? Well, all eclipses, I said, you'll feel it a month before and certainly a year later, but maybe more acutely in the 3 to 6 months after. And, there's a possibility with Mars that some of you are quitting your job or changing your career no matter what, because the Mars up here has been angling for either dedicated, passionate work, but you're dog paddling your ass off and getting tired, and you're not sure you want to keep going. And we're especially when we talk about jobs, right? 6th house energy, like as opposed to avocations or side hustles. Mars is going to be pretty intensely there till the middle of April. And so if you make it through to the middle of April without quitting your job or your job quitting you, Libra, then we may just see, as I said, some big calamity in social standing, maybe. Oh, darling, Biffy and Buffy at the country club don't want you there anymore, and you've been disbanded or disbarred or outcast from the country club. Social standing, like, who I don't think of my life in terms of social standing and reputation. Oh, it's so funny. Okay. Lastly, I mean, the North Node's expanding your house of pets and work, right? So changes in relationship equal changes in pets, changes in relationships equal changes in rental property situations, changes in relationships equal changes in debts that you can pay down or pay off or can pay back to you. So there's big debt changes going on here too. I don't know. A lot going on. Uranus is on a wealth start in your chunky money house. That's a whole other story. But I will add one more thing. With Mars in the house of the father, there's a possibility sextiling Uranus in the chunky money house, connected to legal settlements and agreements, and Jupiter in the house of courts. All said and done, for a very few of you Libras, there may be an inheritance coming from a father figure in the next year off of this eclipse. Scorpio, sun, moon, and rising sign. We have a energy going on in the sixth house. This is where you're going to notice that eclipses are happening. Your sixth house is very, very predictable. Your sixth house is your rinse and repeat cycle of work, job, rental properties, career, pets, debts, health. And back in 1987, 88, you had some eclipses here, and then back again in 2004 to 2006. So check out those things. Did you get a new pet? Did you have a health challenge? What was going on? You change a job? Because change, expansion, destined, merry-go-round of life on the nodal path of life. And I'm thinking back, to my son, who's a Scorpio rising, 2004 to 6, we got a new dog. There was a new pet in his life, Benji, who just passed away recently. So you can basically rinse, repeat, except this time we have a different thing going on. We have the chironic wound here. There's something about where your relationship to animals, to pets, to your health and health routines, to work and the workspace, the colleague coworker space, to debts, to rental property situations, has been feeling wounded since 2019. And now the chironic wound is healing thanks to the eclipse of April of 24. Yes, we had one April 23, but it wasn't as on that chironic narrative. April 23 was helping you heal something connected perhaps to a marriage partner in April of 2023 and a committed love story and a karmic debt to that person. But this is different. This is like this time around, we're mopping up from a full clearing of some kind of karmatic wounds here. And we add the node of fate moving into the third, is it in the fifth house? And this could definitely look like children or fertility or pregnancy, as well as the amplification of entrepreneurial businesses and creative projects. And this is going to activate a month before and up to a year after this eclipse. Although quite often, within 6 months of a solar eclipse, you've got the lay of the land. You understand what it's truly about. And because the eclipse is occurring with Venus, a fertility goddess in the house of fertility, you or your partner, I don't care if you're the guy or the girl, it's not about gender, are very in a fertile state. You have a fertile energy going on here. Sure, you can have a creative project or entrepreneurial business thing take off under this energy. And the chironic wound in the house of work could be because the work you do isn't unaligned with purpose, and it. And we don't always think, we all think, I need money, got to pay the bills, I got to have a mortgage and a roof over my head. I get it. But Chiron's pretty picky, and he wants you to be the key to purpose, Chiron, on purpose in the work you do. And you've been niggling with this since 2019, many of you Scorpios. Maybe you had fallings out with the boss, you had problems with coworkers and colleagues, been wounded, you've been outcast in your workplace, you don't fit in. All right, there you go. So we want to make changes, or the sky will do it for you. End of story. If you've always wanted to be an artist, a creative, or a performer, an actor, you've been stuck in a day job, this is a classic chart for that to change. Okay. One thing you could say about this, you could say many things about this actually. But certainly one thing you could say about this is, how could this energy allow you to find more joy, fun, play, and pleasure in life? Where have you lost the thread of life's enjoyment? Because the place of joy and pleasure and wonder and awe and innocence is the fifth house and is expanding. The North Node is expanding and trying to pull you away from, reel you away from this part of the sky that is literally challenging the joy factor in your life. Get out of the workaday drudgery. They used to call the sixth house a house of slavery. I say it's duty and drudgery. It's where you're in something that you're doing, but you're not loving, maybe, or if it's work feels too hard or something like that. Now, with the Lord of the eclipse in your ninth house, Mars is in a condition of fall. He squares the eclipse in his own home. Some of you might be going through a crisis of faith, a spiritual crisis, or a crisis with a father figure. With Pluto in the house of legacy wealth and Jupiter in the house of inheritance, the downside of this eclipse is a challenge to the health of your father or father figure, uncle, granddad, take your pick. And the potential of the long game being some kind of financial gain from that situation. And also, you might notice that you could be in a sort of situation where there may be some changes in your life connected to work. The sun is eclipsed as a ruler of your 10th house of career, but connected to far off distant shores, foreign lands, and foreign entities. So there's that as well. Or even over the next year, higher education. And you guys may go back to school in order to retrain in a different career. And the opportunity for that can emerge a month before and up to a year after the eclipse, even beyond a year, honestly, but just keep that in mind. And Jupiter's protecting your wealth, and he sextiles the eclipse, and he wants you to have chunky money, money to invest in the stocks, money that you can share with your spouse or significant other, money that comes in chunks that you don't earn in your paycheck. Okay, unearned income. So Jupiter's trying to bring that bounty to you. This eclipse is connected to that because Jupiter sextiles the eclipse in the house of debts. Maybe a karmic debt is owed to you and you're going to come into some money. Maybe you're able to eliminate any of the debts you actually have because of some money you're coming into. So I can see that for some of you for sure. Maybe after this eclipse, you could rent a property out or buy, sell, or rent property as well. These are themes that are emerging, as well as get a pet that brings you joy, fun, play, and pleasure. Let me find my water. There it is. Okay, here we go. Do not forget to try to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know when I drop a new video. Thanks, guys. It helps the channel grow, and it really would be good to support the channel because this is why I'm here. Because if it's growing, I'm excited, and if it's not, I'm like, I don't really want to do this all the time. If I'm stuck in limbo here. I got my plaque in the mail, my 100,000 plaque. I'm going to share it with you guys in another video. I wanted to hang it up behind me. I have a thingy here, but I need to get a hammer and I need to get a level or find where my level is so that I can make it hang up right behind where I'm sitting. All right. So let's talk about Sagittarius, sun, moon, and rising sign. Well, it's cyclical. The eclipses have been here, 87, 88. Eclipses have been here 2004, 2006. These are eclipses in the Aries axis of your chart, Aries Libra. There's an expansion, a growth, an intensity as the North Node is amplifying or expanding your energies of your fourth house of home, property, and real estate, while also eclipsing something to do with sex, love, romance, children, entrepreneurial or creative projects. It's interesting to say this, but it feels to me like some of you may have a domain change of home, domicile change in the year that follows this eclipse, and towards a dream home that makes you less isolated, alone, less melancholic. But it may be a change that comes from a career shift, like you quit your entrepreneurial biz or your creative business, but also from a romantic story. The only other way to put it is you're going to change your home because of one of your children. Or you're young, you're pregnant, you need to get a bigger space for a crib or something. So there's this energy going on between the fourth and the fifth house for you. Some of you have been experiencing a chironic wound in the house of sexuality. This has been feeling like, what the hell? Romance, sex, love, true love, dating, relationship stuff, not good, not working for you, right? The chironic wound in the fifth house, or even being wounded with one of your children, having a falling out with a child. No one has a falling out with their kindergartner, but, with an adult child and, that kind of thing. With a wound in the fifth house, it is the house of innocence, wonder, awe. It is the house of, sort of like finding the like holy fool within you, the joy spark and all of that. So there's been a little bit of that. You've been contending with this 2019 that makes it different than the eclipses of the past. You're trying to heal the chironic wound, and you really had a slam dunk on that wound in April of 24 with a full eclipse on Chiron. And this is an eclipse that's really about, the other eclipse that you had in April of 23 could have relocated your home. Okay. But this eclipse is different. This is connected. It could have relocated your home, but it was connecting to your home, connected to other matters, to do with pets, to do with debts, karmic and real, to do with, relationships. But this change of home is coming off of something that's much more directly connected to healing not only the chironic wound in the romance house and the fun, play, pleasure, and joy and arts. Like, I'm going to change my home because I need an art studio. I need room for my creativity. But also, you've been having once every 30 years Saturnian transit through the fourth, where being alone and a loner or melancholic and depressed or anxious or home alone or having an elder in the home and it's bogging you down, making a whole bunch of stories up. But that Saturn transit through the fourth house is not an easy transit. It makes you very alone. And that's also important because it's almost like you're doing a double whammy. I'm healing my romantic and pleasure and joy wounds, and I'm healing the wound of my aloneness. There's a great poem by David White, the poet, and it's The House of My Belonging, or The House of Belonging, or something like that. Go Google it, because you can be alone and not lonely, So there's something about that story that you might be working on. And finally, Mars is a ruler of the eclipse. It's happening in his Aries home. And this is shared assets and spousal separation and divorce. First of all, 8th house Mars is really good at, like, you take the sofa, I'll take the dog, so you might help you cut up the assets. This could lead with Jupiter crossing through the 7th house, now direct since, indirect motion now since early February. You've been Jupiter tested for the good housekeeping seal of approval in long-term committed business and love relationships, as well as endurance through legal contracts and issues to do with legal issues. And Jupiter is now clear. He knows what is good for you. You're going to get what you need, not what you want. Maybe what you need and want is the same thing. He knows best. And he's going forward through to June 9th. And any relationship that's been challenged could fall apart at this time. And I only bring that up because of the situation with the 5th house eclipse. Okay. And Mars in his fall in the house of shared assets. And he's known as the great divider here. He will divide up the assets, shared resources with someone else, whether it's a business partner or a love partner. There's something going on there. Now, Jupiter is also very protective. So if there is an end of a relationship, it probably comes with a namaste vibe. But I salute the soul within you or spirit within you, but I wouldn't put it past Mars to have hot emotions over who owes who what or who gets what if relationships are falling apart and you're trying to figure it out, Just got to say, for some of you. I mean, this is not a kind of eclipse that I don't know if I want to start a new relationship under this eclipse. Okay. So if you're a single Sag, I'm wondering about that. I'm wondering about that. Yeah, I don't think I would, because Mars is squaring the eclipse, and there's whoever you start a relationship with, there's a chance for infidelity, secret relationships, and fighting over shared monies and resources. So let this eclipse go by you and start a relationship under something else much better. Let this one go. All right. I wouldn't want to bake that in. This is more like, just don't. That's all I got for you. Capricorn, sun, moon, and rising sign. Right. So we have some eclipses, repeating a pattern of 1987, 88, 2004 to 2006. And here we are again. Aries eclipses in your fourth house. Your fourth house is your home. It's where you live. It's where you put your head down at night. It's the womb. It's the darkness. It's the underground place. It's the secret darkness of your life. Hello, darkness, my old friend. It represents the midnight hour, and it literally is the darkest part of the sky. So the sun is in the 10th high noon, and technically that's not always true. The midheaven IC does that most accurately, but this is a concept of the fourth house. So it's the house of the mother, your childhood, your growing up years, your home and homeland. Now, why I'm bringing this up, all the meanings of it, because it's got lots to catch, a lot of meanings there, guys, is that an eclipse in the fourth house can eclipse where you live. So you could change your home. And Chiron says, perhaps some of you Capricorns have been feeling a chironic wound of belonging, outcast, don't fit in, don't like where you live, have a problem with your home. Are you my home? Are you my home? Is this where I'm supposed to be? Why don't I feel like a belongingness here? That kind of thing. And that's a chironic wound activated since 2019. And the eclipses are trying to blast that wound out of you, like kaboom. Now, it was here back in 60, 68, 69. If you were there as a child, did you have a wound around home? Did parents uproot you in 68, 69, 67, 68, 69? I bet they did. So this is a time to heal this wound that could be coming off of your childhood if you're old enough to know the story. So I'm talking to you people who are in your early 60s. There's something you might want to consider, right? Chiron here could also be a wound with the mother and the relationship to the mother. And you're trying to heal that relationship. Even if she's not here anymore, we have to heal how we were in relationship to our mother, because we all have mother wounds, even with the best of mothers. And Chiron has a mother wound in the mythology. His mother gave him up, didn't keep him. So there's already embedded within the chironic wound, the wound of a mother wound. So any last healing you need to do on your mother wounds, this is your chance, because over the month before and year after, you have a chance to heal the wound with your mom. Now, an eclipse in the house of the mother as a solar eclipse could also indicate challenges for your mother's health in the year that follows, should your mama be still alive and with us. The dispositor of the eclipses here, this eclipse, as you had one in 23, and did you move? Did you have a mother wound healing? 24, did you move? Did you have a mother wound healing? Etc. But now here we have the last one, so the grand finale. But this time around, the grand finale includes a square from Mars in your seventh house, and Mars is like cutting, severing, and ending. What? Legal contracts? Maybe you're going to break a lease. Significant relationships? Uh-oh. Yeeks, are you moving because you're breaking up with someone? There is a possibility of a move because of a business deal or negotiation or contract to do with something in the workspace. That is the least likely reason for it. I'll have to give you that. The sun rules shared resources with business partners and significant others as well. And this is the fourth house of home. And Mars is going to end up in Leo mid-April to mid-June. There may be some disputes with a significant other regarding property, resources, and shared financial matters coming through your sky very strongly here, mid-April till mid-June. But you're going to see the beginnings of this coming off this eclipse in the fourth house, which is going to be activated by Mars, fallen in the house of significant long-term committed love. Jupiter's protecting things. He's in the house of debts, karmic and real. Jupiter's in the house of pets. Jupiter's in your sixth house of matters to do with your work and health routines. And he does look favorably upon the eclipse. A change of home could be really good for your finances and elimination of debts. It could also be really good for situations to do with improving your health. And a change of home could also be connected to work and opportunities in work environments. The node is in the third house of travel. And so fourth house can indicate a change of neighborhood as well, local change, domestic change within your state, within your country, that kind of thing. Also possibly, a change of home that requires a change of job that involves travel. These are all possibilities. The North Node in your third house is going to expand the following themes over the next year and a half: travel, writing, communicating, social media, local neighborhood environments, relationship to a sibling. The North Node in your third house with a change, an eclipse in the fourth house, is very possibly an eclipse saying you're going to move, but it's connected to the following people: the sibling one younger than you, aunts, uncles, cousins, and nieces, the extended family, and also neighbors. So who knows why? The neighbor says, I'm going to put my house up for sale, but I just rather just sell it to a friend. You want to take a look at it, you want to buy it, things like that. Or there's something going on with your extended family and you're going to move closer to them to help out or something like that, to be of service or to be close to them. Of service, because Jupiter is in the house of being of service. Uranus is, of course, giving you some shock and awe in the house of your children and in the house of romantic love, connected to the North Node that's connected to this eclipse. So there may be some sudden shocking fractures and breakages in relationships with your children or a romantic long-term partner that kind of like, it's got a bit of shock and awe. I would say that for sure. And then it leads to a domestic change in your life, a change of domicile where you live. All right, moving on. Algol is a well-star. Uranus is on it. And you do have the North Node in the third house. It wouldn't be a bad idea in connection with this eclipse to go play a local lottery. Go down to the local store and get a lottery ticket, but know that that could also be, because the house of good fortune is sort of half-assed involved with Mars, the dispositor, that you could have some contention around that money once you win with somebody else, significant other or something like that. Okay, that's what I got for you. I went all over the map on this one for you guys. Yeah. All right, Aquarius, sun, moon, and rising sign. There is an eclipse energy moving through your sky. It's amplifying changes that you must attend to in your third house. This is, changes of neighborhood, basically, or neighbor relations, or changes in what you're learning or teaching, changes in your online situation, writing and communicating, changes in your amplification of changes, just changes in your relationship to a younger sibling, one younger than you. Now, this eclipse cycle that makes those changes has activated with an eclipse in, 23 in April of 2023, April of 2024. And here is the last eclipse. But it's also over a cycle that was similar to 2004 to 2006 and 1987 to 1988. Did you move? Did you change your neighborhood? I did. I lived in New York City. I'm Aquarius rising, right? I lived in New York City, and then it was 87, 88. Yes. I got pregnant and we had to get a better home, a bigger home. So within a year of the eclipse of 88, I had changed my home, 86, 87, 88, I moved homes. Okay, there was that. It was really, let me double check something. I don't have my chart up. 86, 87, 88. Okay, well, it's a double whammy for me back then because I moved to New York City in 87. So, and then I moved again because I got pregnant. So this move upon move back then for me. But so it was a big change. I moved. But also the other thing you want to know about is, and go back to 2004 and 2006, did you have a change of home of any significance because of these eclipses through your third house? I sure did. I had a massive change of home back then, okay? Because I separated from my husband and moved into my own place. So there's so much about that. And both of those, that was a local neighborhood change. All right. And same with the first one. In 86, 87, I moved twice. I mean, long story short, I'm just trying to show you this stuff works. So go back and compare. Now, your third house is also the house of your local everyday activities. I go to the gym, in your routines. I go to the restaurants here. I do this, I do that. I shop at these grocery stores. The daily routines in the local environment are undergoing significant change. They have been since 23, 24, and continuing through a year after this eclipse. So keep that in mind as well. The daily life and its routines are under change, a lot of change. The chironic wound has been active here for you since 2019. I always tell the stories. You guys are getting bored of it. I couldn't travel anywhere because I didn't take the ineffective protocol during the pandemic. So I was locked down. That was totally a wound in the third house. And then my writing wound happened since 2019. Couldn't write a damn thing. It's actually been healed since the chironic eclipse that happened in 24, and I started writing on Substack. But writing wounds, communication wounds, wounds with a sibling one younger, wounds with your ability to travel, wounds with educational situations where you want to learn something but can't get enrolled, or your teacher and the classes are flopping. I don't know. There's wounds. Chiron wants you to be on purpose. He wants you to be aligned. He wants you to use your gifts and talents in the third house. So then the wound is being healed at this time. If you go into the idea that the dispositor of the eclipse is Mars, and he's squaring in a sign of his fall from the 6th house, there's going to be major changes in the way you do the work you do that connect you to healing the wound of the 3rd house. Mars can be such a workaholic in the 6th house as he can be in the 2nd. And maybe there's a lot of things you're noticing here as Mars has been in the work house, right? September, October, and then since December 6th, leaving mid-April, you notice that the work is your dog paddling at all the speed you can. And you're getting very, very little feeling of momentum maybe, or excitement about it, or you're working too hard, or work feels contentious and difficult. Who knows? But dog paddling, Mars in the workhouse, right? Changes in the local neighborhood, changes in your communications, your online stuff, your writing, your website, your social media, and changing the way you do the work you do. Now, you also want to change your health protocols. And this is like literally get yourself to a gym. This is the eclipse, but or maybe a swimming pool, maybe a Tai Chi center, maybe Qigong, maybe some martial art. Mars is in water and he's flowing. So there's a change in yin yoga. There's a change in your health connected to exercise in the local environment. For a lot of us Aquariuses, I don't know what it is I'm going to do, but I think it might be hot yoga, steam, right? Mars is in the sign of water. Now, you may have a change of rental property. Mars is in the house of tenancies, landlords, and indentured servitude. And this is indicating that Mars will foist upon you a change of home, of residence to another neighborhood, or change of locale, may be connected here to a change of rental status. You've got a lot of protection from Jupiter. He's looking over at you, flowing to you in a beautiful air trine to your Aquarius sun, moon, and rising. And he's bringing you good fortune from the house of good fortune. But he also is looking at this eclipse in a favorable manner. And so some of these changes that you're making that I'm describing to you so far could also bleed through to some very good fortune experiences with your children, changes of home that bring you closer to your children, changes of home that are better for your romantic life. That said, Mars is slicing through your house of committed love, mid-April till mid-June, which could fracture an existing love relationship. I just have to say that Jupiter gives us what we want in our love life, not what we need. And he is in the house of romantic love. So if you're single, maybe it could bring someone in, but if you're not, it could end up being more challenging than not. But a change of home connected to a sibling too younger than you as well. A change of home connected to creative projects and entrepreneurial businesses. A change of home connected to relationship status in love and romance, or your children. In this case, especially perhaps in a connection to your firstborn child. Oh, or your secondborn child. Actually, the sun is the ruler of your secondborn child, but Jupiter is in the house of your firstborn child. So either one. Now, yeah, family compound, anyone? Oh my gosh. With the North Node in the 2nd house, all these changes are doing is amplifying your financial gain. You're going to have more money, more savings, more financial wealth over the next 18 months. It's almost hard to screw this up. As Aquarius rising, Saturn is the Lord of your sign in the 2nd house, amplifying your financial gains through conservation of money, strategies by Incorporated, new structures for financial gain. And the North Node exacerbates and amplifies that. And so because you have an amplification of career, money, and gains and resources and possessions, while at the same time an eclipse is happening in the 3rd house, it's as if a change of locale, neighbors, neighborhood relationships or situations, or daily routines in your daily environment will help amplify the career gains themselves. Or the career gains allow for you to be able to financially shift something to do with your property, home, land, and real estate matters, and change of neighborhood situations as well. And you may get a pet. Mars is in the house of pets. And you might go down to the local, what do you call it, pound or rescue place, and get an animal off of this particular story. I want a cat. I miss animals. My dog passed. I need an animal. I need someone to snuggle. Oh my God. And because if you're honest, of course, shock and awe in the house of home, property, land, and real estate generically, but flowing to Mars and flowing to Venus and the North Node, any changes of home are very fortunate circumstantially. Don't be afraid of that energy. It looks very positive. are changes in the home, right? Not just of the home, or dramatic changes in the home. Like, oh my God, I've got a pet in the home. You see what I'm saying? But it's surprising because Uranus brings surprise as well. Right. Here we go. Pisces, sun, moon, and rising sign. I thought I was going to do a lot today. I was going to do a video, and then I was going to do my slides for a class. And I'm like, what am I doing? I'm getting this video done. I'm going for a long walk, and I'm going to get myself some pho. That's what I'm going to do. All right. So moving into the narrative, eclipses are happening like they have happened before in your second house. And your second house is your house of earnings and resources, money and savings and possessions. And it can eclipse the money from your life, and it can eclipse a possession from your life. It can eclipse your dietary style. You might have a dramatic change of how you eat, and it can eclipse addictions as well. So that's not too shabby. Chironic wound in the second house of money and earnings, though, you've been dealing with it. And you may want to eclipse the wound around your financial situation, whether it's your savings or your earnings, or your facial appearance, or your dietary style, or your addictions. This is things that Pisces have dealt with since 2019. The eclipse of April of 2023 was working on that, but also activated the third house of the neighbors and neighborhood and travel. So it's a different vibe. And then, and a sibling one younger. And then the eclipse of 2024 was a full-on, let's heal this damn second house wound already, total solar eclipse involving Chiron. But then this eclipse on the 29th of March is in your second house, bleeding through to the house of your identity, the house of your sun in Pisces, your career, the house of your moon, your home in Pisces, the house of your ascendant in Pisces, and everything about your identity. And so there's something about financial wellness, dietary style, and facial appearance and approval thereof that completely reforms and changes your identity, because as the North Node moves through your first house, or over your sun and moon, over the next 18 months, there is an expansion and a destined significant amplification of those parts of your chart and your identity. You are coming into like a once in a lifetime, March 27th stellium of planets in your Pisces sky. And it's been weighted that way all of March. And you might be noticing that you're feeling called to a deeper introspection, understanding of self, mystical disclosure, insights, revelations, and a sense of being in a place of profound enchantment. So keep that up. But as this is happening, you are also noticing, I hope, that Mars is in amplification in a positive way, a trine to the changes that are ongoing for you, from the house of good fortune, from the house of your talents and natural abilities, from the house of joy, fun, play, the house of wonder, awe, and innocence. The fifth house is really a sweet spot in the sky. So Mars is supporting you in a flow during this eclipse, which is positive, but he's also squaring the actual eclipse. So he's flowing to the node in the sign of Pisces, but squaring the eclipse in the house of earnings. There could be a big change coming here in something to do with money, expenditures, and children, money, expenditures, and long-term romantic love and love relationships, romantic love relationships, not long-term. And also changes when it comes to entrepreneurial life. If you have an entrepreneurial life, Mars may be forcing you to take some action to get that going in order to heal a financial wound around money, for example. It's time to get the business going. It's time to hustle. Mars is in your entrepreneurial house till mid-April. It's been direct since February 23rd. Let me know how it's going. Jupiter is blessing you from the fourth house. You can be prosperous, wealthy, and abundant in and from things you do in your home. This is a great setup for entrepreneurial, efforts by you at this time, or creative and entrepreneurial efforts to succeed. Jupiter can bring children into your home. And Jupiter can also expand the people in your home. So if you live alone or you live with one person, maybe you're going to fill the home with extra people that bring you bounty and joy and pleasure, or children in the home. Now, also a bigger home, right? More people there. So either more people in the home or a bigger home could be coming to you. And also this has been true with Jupiter down here since last year, since May, right? So some of you already had this happen, but it's still in play and through till June 9th. But Jupiter favors this eclipse. He looks at it in a favorable way. And so he could bring you financial abundance connected to home, what you do in the home, a breaking of a curse or a wound around your financial reserves and savings and resources, and spending and possessions of things. You could buy a car off of this. You could buy a new home off of this. You could expand your home. This is exciting. And the sun happens to be the ruler of your house of debt. And you could eclipse a debt. Do you have a credit card debt, a loan, a mortgage? Is there debt that you need to get rid of? You could eclipse some debt in this energy. And some of you may have already eclipsed some debt, so keep that in mind. But there's more debt eclipsing ahead if you need to let go, eclipse, release a debt. One last thing. I mean, the South Node will travel through your significant marriage house for 18 months. It doesn't mean the marriage falls apart. If you're single, a destined soulmate relationship for a season, reason, or a time could come your way. But if you're with somebody, your partner may be having some challenges with their health in the next 18 months, or feel, low, or feel like they're surrendered or something. But you also can find yourself less interested in the relationship. You're focused on you. It's what you want, what you need to grow and expand into, how you can get more amplitude for your identity, sun, purpose, moon, your home life and your feelings, and Pisces ascendant, everything about you. So be aware of that tendency there for you to be more focused on you and less on the relationship, if you have one, that you're already in. Otherwise, for those of you who are single, you'll get a new partner out of this. And I only bring this up because the eclipse is activating Mars in the romance house. And even though he's in his fall, for singletons, you might find yourself in a destined, fated, soulmatey, past life vibe, new relationship in a month before and up to a year after this relationship. Otherwise, if you're with someone, it could be more of a challenge to be in that relationship. You're more focused on you and what you want, and maybe your creative passions, maybe your entrepreneurial business passions, etc. All right, that's what I have for you. I hope this has been helpful. I feel like I've been sitting on this chair for far too long. My butt is definitely feeling sore. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell. It does help the channel grow. This girl is taking a nice long walk and maybe getting a bowl of soup and then going for a foot massage. And then tomorrow, getting up early and starting to work on some slides I need for 2 different classes I'm teaching. The Venus retrograde class on Saturday and a money course on Saturday as well. It's a big teaching day Saturday. In my description box below, all the things you need to know about everything I do, classes I teach, and all of that are in the description box under the video. Just click through to all my links, including my website. I never get it when someone emails me directly and they ask me about my prices, or they ask me about getting a reading, because every bit of information is under there, including my website, right? I don't get it. I'm like, I'm all over the place. Just Google me. You'll find my website. You'll find my Instagram. You'll find my teaching site. You'll find my Substack. Oh my goodness gracious. So I take the time to respond. I don't have someone reading my emails, but I'm like, people, just Google my website. I don't know. Just like always baffles me, actually. All right, I'm done. Thanks. Thanks. This is coming out on Thursday. I'm recording March the 4th. This is coming out on Thursday. Since anyone's still listening or just my regulars, oh my God, guys, it's really a challenge to put out the world content. I know, I'm complaining about it. I'm not really, but even in a recent video I did, within like the first 24 hours, I had 26 subscribers, and normally it's like 100 and something, because I'm talking about contentious topics. And you guys, first of all, explanation does not mean approval. You know what I mean? To explain why something's happening doesn't mean you approve of it. To talk about historical reasons that situations exist doesn't mean it's a 2 thumbs up for what's happening. And number 2, astrological political analysis is just that, right? It's just that. It's not me, favoring, I have a favoritism. I do. I believe in certain things. I believe in social progressive policies for the most part, but I believe in fiscal conservatism because for so many reasons I could go into. I'm living in a country that spends all of its money on social services and has the highest tax rate, of many of the countries around the world. Seriously, I mean, it's like we're living in a country where we have social services we don't get. We can't even get a doctor, but my taxes are extraordinarily high. So yes, so that's my Canadian perspective. All right, ciao guys. Have a wonderful day. See you later. I'll see you in the next video. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications.